Hello plant friends, my name is Victoria and you're watching Plantastics. Today I'm going to be doing a part 1 of answering all your questions about the dancing wall. So without further ado, roll the intro and let's get started. One of the questions I get the most is, how do I not have water damage or termites? And it's just because that I do not have it actually on the wall. I have it on this frame that I made, and I'm going to link a video in the description. And that's the video basically showing you how I built this. And it also is really heavy, yes, but it can move because I also added wheels, if you can see there. The next question that I get is, what are the plants in? Are they in the pockets or are they actually like in pots? And they're in pots, and that is because it's really easy for me to just take them out. I'm trying to figure out who I want to take out. I think that this Hoya is the easiest. So the reason that they're in pots is because sometimes I don't realize how much light or how little light a plant needs, and if they're in pots, I can move them around. You can tell based on my post history on Reddit and also seeing pictures and videos on YouTube that I have figured out and moved some of them around. And that has been great, because if I had them in pockets, it's not that they're like written in stone stuck there, but it is not as easy as just taking a pot out and plopping it into a different pocket. Another question that I get pretty frequently is, how do I water it? And it's pretty easy. So I did drain everything, but I still need to clean it. I fill this up. I think it holds like 10, 15, maybe 20 gallons. I really have no idea. I have a 2.5 gallon sprayer that I fill up and just empty into here until the water line's right there. Because if it's not to that point, then the water pump's not submerged, and you want it to be submerged because if they run dry, they burn out. So that's what I do. And whenever I plug it up, water comes out each and every one of these little lines. The next question that I get pretty frequently is, how do I make sure each plant gets enough water, and how do I make sure I don't water too much? And that's a 2-part answer. So the first part is, each and every one of these is adjustable. So if you look really closely, hopefully you can see that there's a plus and minus. So this actually twists, and in twisting it, you're opening and closing the outlet, so that way more or less water can come in. Every single pocket has its own water line, just like the one I just showed you. So what I do is I adjust it, and based off of me having this wall, I've had it since December of last year. So I've had it for a year and 3 months. Based off of that, I've learned that I need to give these less water in winter. So there are seasonal adjustments, and then there are plant specific adjustments, just depending on what time of the year it is and what kind of plant it is. So that's the part 1, is I actually can control how much water each plant gets. And the part 2 of that answer is, I control and can manage the water that is absorbed in the substrate. That's why every plant on this wall has a unique blend that I just honestly kind of make up and through trial and error use. So some things are in 100% soil, some are in 50-50 moss and perlite, some are 100% moss, some are a mixture of bark and soil, and some are 100% bark. And it really just depends on the roots of that plant. More finely tiny diametered roots are going to have more water needs. So they need something that's more retentive. So that means that their substrate needs to hold on and retain that water instead of just passing through. Whereas some of the thicker rooted plants, they need something that's less water retentive. So that's going to be something like, anthuriums, something in terms of substrate like something coarse and chunky like bark, perlite, or charcoal. That has worked incredibly well for me. Believe it or not, I do not have any problems with root rot. I've honestly maybe just had one freak thing happen with my Michelle dock block, and she's still in a jar, so she needs to make a reappearance on the wall. But that was because I had it in a sack instead of a flower pot. So I have removed all of the sacks that I had because I had these like cotton bags with drawstrings, and I had some of the plants in there, some of the larger rooted plants, but I have since removed those because they were a little too water retentive and there wasn't much airflow. The next question that I get is, how do I feed them? And they all are epiphytic for the most part, or they like epiphytic fertilizer. So what I do is I mix, it's called liquid kelp, Super Thrive, and I also use Better Grow fertilizer. So I use a fertilizer solution that was recommended to me by someone that is in an orchid society, and it's been the best thing that I've ever, like, it's honestly been the best advice I've ever followed. That is linked in the video description, exactly what I use. So I don't use it at the highest amount. I probably do 2 scoops of everything. And if you think about it, I'm sure this at least holds 10 gallons. I've honestly never measured it, but it's such a diluted fertilizer. The Better Grow fertilizers also come in a purple bag and a green bag. The purple bag is once a month and the green bag is every week. So if you're lazy, you can just do the once a month. But if you want the once a week, you can do that. I kind of just use them interchangeably. Sometimes I'll run out of one and I'll basically use it up the other bag until I can find both. And it just really depends. Like, if I can't remember the last time I fertilized, I will opt for the week and then I'll start remembering to record it in my calendar. So that's what I feed them. And as you can see, it's worked out really well for me. And I also have the question, what grow lights do I use? I'm going to link those as well. That's just a way to support the channel. I have and only use GE and Barina grow lights. I do have a Sansi grow light that I'm experimenting with, but I like to use a grow light for a year or more before I can recommend it, because it's very easy to unbox something and set it up. That's very easy, but that's very shallow in terms of offering a recommendation, because there are some things that are great out the box but are not durable. So that's why I recommend GE and Barina. I'm not sponsored by them, but if you want to sponsor me, you can email me. These are just the most reliable plants that I've had. So I've actually been using grow lights on my plants since they very first came out. It was an unnamed brand, and the grow lights were 100% purple. And this was before I graduated high school. So mid 2010, so maybe 2012, 2010, around that time is when I got my first grow lights, and I learned that there's like a bullseye, that's the danger zone. And if you have something that likes indirect light in that danger zone, you're going to get your plants burned. So I've been using grow lights for, is it 15 years now? So I've learned through trial and error what does and doesn't work. I've gone through so many brands, and these are the ones that I like and use every single day. So this grow light right here, this is the GE Par 38, and that's my favorite. You can get it at Lowe's if you don't want to shop Amazon. And I love this one. I have been using this one for 4 years, and I kind of just move it around. Obviously, I haven't had the wall for 4 years. Now, these 2 lights on either side, those are Barina grow lights, and I'll link them because I can't remember their exact name. So it looks like it's 2 separate lights, but it's 2 lights on one line. So it's just one plug-in. So it was like a 2-in-1 light. And I have only used these on the wall. I don't have them anywhere else. So these I've had running for a year and 3 months. The same can be said for these standing lights. These are the Barina grow lights that are the standing ones. And I actually made my own, and it's one of my older videos, and it's before they came out with this. I reached out to them, was like, hey, can you please make a standing light? Obviously, I have no clue if that's why they made these or not, because they never responded to my email. But I like these, and I've also had these for 1 year and 3 months. So the GE I've had for 3 years, and it has just been running every single day wherever I've had it set up. And then the 2 standing Barina lights and the 2 hanging Barina lights, those I've had for 1 year and 3 months, and they've been really reliable. The next question that I get is kind of like debated in the plant community, but I honestly don't see it as a debate. And that is, how long do you leave your grow lights on for? Do you leave them on for the same amount of time throughout the year? Or do you turn them on and off based off of how many hours of sunlight you're getting? Basically, do you have them on the same, or do you turn it to where it's representative of the daylight you're going to get for seasons? And I personally like the Casa plugs. They're automated, they're digital. So if your power goes out, like if you live in the South where we have thunderstorms, tornadoes, hailstorms, hurricanes, snowstorms, you don't have to worry about resetting these like you would with a mechanical timer. They just automatically turn back on and you don't have to reset them. So I love the Casa plugs, and I have those linked in the description as well. And I love those because it's very easy and it's just like mindless. You set it up and you forget it. I have mine set up to where they turn on at sunrise and they turn off at sunset. And that way, all my plants in my house get to experience seasons. The most affordable way is to have one big outlet that has the 6, it's like a surge protector. I like that. I have it in my propagation room. Now, this one specifically, everything plugs into one of the tiny like square outlets, which I do not have it plugged in right now. I just have it on a 24-hour right now because I'm doing these beautiful amaryllis time lapses, because I'm going to do a year in review of time lapses of all the amaryllis bulbs that I have, because I have, I believe, close to 10 varieties, and not everybody's going to make it onto the time lapse, but there will at least be a short video or series of photos of each variety. So that's what I'm doing right now. So this is kind of like an exception. I don't normally have them on 24 hours a day. So in having seasons, it doesn't really matter if you have plants that live like, on the equator and they don't experience seasons. It doesn't harm them in my experience. The reason that I have temperatures is because I have quite a lot of blooming epiphytic plants, specifically these epiphytic cacti. So I have every season of epiphytic cacti you can have. I have Easter, I have Thanksgiving, I have Christmas. If there's one I'm leaving off, please let me know. And these are multiple years old, and every year they have more and more flowers. Now, this one here is pretty miraculous. It's the one with the most new growth. This is the Easter cactus. I actually got it from a lady at a plant swap probably 2 years ago. It was just a 2-inch cutting, and now it is this huge, beautiful, soon to be blooming, hopefully this year, impressive plant. So I just kept cutting off pieces and putting it into the soil to have a fuller pot and a larger plant. So in arranging your grow lights, this is something that people kind of ask me. They're like, how do you know where to put your plants on the wall? And it's really trial and error. So the plants that really like to be at the top, in terms of orchids, the easiest way to cheat and not have to look it up every single time is to look at the thickness of the leaves. So here's a great example. I have a Miltoniopsis, I have a coconut orchid, and I have an Oncidium. This is Sherry Baby. So if you look at how thick their leaves are, this one's kind of, if you just look at the 3 of these, this one's like in the middle, this one's really thick, and these are super, super narrow. So that means that this one needs the most light. This one needs to be somewhere in the middle. And this one can kind of be wherever. And these black spots are from it being in a lower light area and then me putting it under these toasty grow lights. So it's not terrible, and it's only on the older leaves. You can see the newer leaves don't have it. So it's not a true cry for help. It just is acclimating. So in having this layering, so I have my top plants that are going to be in the higher part of the canopy, and then I have the middle, and then I'm in the learning process still of finding lower canopy, really high foliage, big plants, and it's really tempting to just get calatheas or tenanthes because I know that they're going to do well, and that's why this is like a it's a work in progress zone. But even in a lower or medium light environment, I still have huge leaves. So it's not the worst thing. I'm thinking about putting Phalaenopsis or other kind of lower light orchids there. Now my Cattleyas, they're under this par 38. So if I were to rate my grow lights in order of most to least intense, the par 38 is number 1. It is the most intense growing plant. Number 2 are these Barinas, but the Barinas are not going to burn your plants. The par 38 will, so you need to be careful with that one. You need to have it to where, and I'll show you a side profile so you can kind of see. See, it's not directly pointing at anybody. Everybody is coming from the wall, meeting the light there. And I do that on purpose because if a plant needs more light, it's going to grow towards it. And if it doesn't, it's going to be happy just like it is. And even in the wall, there's a little bit of etulation. So you can see this one vine kind of going crazy up here. That's etulation, so I'm going to take that and pull it down whenever I get back up on the ladder. Another question is, how do I know what plants do well? And honestly, that's trial and error too, but I can tell you Rex begonias and tuber begonias do not like the wall. Every single one I've put on here, I do take them off when they get sick enough, but if I leave them on there, they die. Also, anything that's super high humidity. So I do this thing where I do not run a humidifier, but you have to keep in mind, I live in the deep south where our humidity outside is between 70 and 80 degrees. So without running a humidifier, my internal ambient humidity could be in the 50s and 60s, easy. We actually run a dehumidifier. Now in winter, there is some suffering and a little bit of browning because we can get, in the winter, the highest humidity is normally 40% and the lowest is in the 20s. So everything and everyone is just a little too dry. So I do just water more frequently because I don't want to run a humidifier because this room is like just kind of in the middle of the house and there aren't doors, so I couldn't like keep it in. Another question I get is, what do I do for pest prevention and pest control? And it is very simple, but it is an investment. I release predatory mites 4 times a year. Now, there are people who think that, oh no, they don't work for me. And I am not endorsed or sponsored by any predatory mite company. I'm just speaking from my own experience. I personally believe that they may not be following the instructions, or they may have pests that predatory mites are not going to prevent. So predatory mites are really great because they eat thrip larvae, they eat other spider mites, they eat the two-spotted spider mites, the red velvets. You need to be very, aware and able to identify what pests you have, because if you don't have the right predatory mite or predatory insect, you're basically just wasting your money. So I have a small microscope where I can identify my pests that I have. I have had thrips on this wall before, believe it or not, and I was able to get rid of them. I used a mix of bonide, systemic granules, and predatory mites, and those two together allowed me to get rid of them. And I was shocked. I had the white, yellow looking thrips. There's over 100 different kinds, so identifying those is not as great in terms of being able to prevent it, because the adult ones, you basically just have to catch them and get rid of them. Something else that I have are these Zavo fly traps. Do not judge me because I'm fixing to show you how many there are because I haven't changed them. Yeah, there's quite a few. So they do catch fungus gnats. They catch these drain flies. Unfortunately, they also catch other things like mosquito hawks. You want these in your house. You do not want these on your back patio because they're going to catch anything that lands on it, which includes reptiles, snakes, geckos, frogs, moths, butterflies. So it's really for whatever comes into your house because I do not spray pesticides. So I have those really just for fungus gnats, but I do once a month go in with my microscope. I have a small handheld one and I look and see if I can see any thrips. So that's a way to just kind of like inspect. Using the predatory mites has been incredibly great for me. I think it's like, 4 times a year is when I do it. So every 3 months. And I do that before I see any pests and I don't have pests. And that's because I keep their numbers equal. Now, the predatory mites, if you release them and you don't have any place for them to go, they will die because they don't have anything to eat. And also, if you've been spraying pesticides, your plants might need to suffer and you might need to rinse those plants off before you buy predatory mites because they're just going to die. If you've used diatomaceous earth and then you try to release predatory mites, it's going to kill them too. So just try to be smart about it. There are some plants that just don't do well and they get taken off the wall. I try to put my best looking plants on here, but there are some that like I've grown from seed. So I'll point to those now. So this beauty right here, this one's grown from seed. This one's grown from seed. And then I have some that I've had for so long that they're actually developing. This was a seedling. This actually I grew from seed and it's got inflows. See them? It's got 2 of them. And this one's really pretty. This one has an inflow too and it has a new leaf. So I fertilized last week and they already had inflows forming, I'm guessing, but the fertilizer I use also gets plants to bloom. This plant right here, this orchid, it is Brassivola nodosa. It has been blooming since October and it is now March. So she's the winner for longest bloomer. And it's amazing because in having this wall, I literally have seasons. So I have seasons where certain things are blooming. So from May to June is when all my Miltoniopsis bloom. So I have lots of spikes forming, but this one specifically is fixing to go crazy. It has 6 spikes. Now, some of the petal tips are a little bit browned and it's because I was gone for 9 days and didn't water it. So they bloom in May and June. And then in late winter, all of my Brassivola nodosas bloomed. So I had Yellowbird, Brassivola nodosa. I had a different one. I can't remember what this one's called. It is Little Stars. So they bloomed and I have to kind of be a little careful because a lot of these plants drip happy sap, which is basically like a sugar and it gets on the floor. I'm going to see if I can find some. I just mopped yesterday, but I didn't get to this room. So this wet stuff right here, this is happy sap. So I need to come over here and clean. And also in late winter is when the dendrobiums bloom. They go into dormancy and wake up. This is my first year ever growing them and I actually had success. I had Dendrobium Yellow Magic bloom. I also have another one that is waking up. I need to give it some more TLC. And this is my alien dendrobium right here. It is called Dendrobium spectabile or spectabile. I'm not really sure. But yeah, I've never had any of my Cattleyas bloom. If you think of any other questions for me, please comment them below. I'm going to try to make this like a series and this is part 1. So thank you so much for watching. I'm so thankful to have you guys as plant friends. And I learned so much from you guys, just like y'all learned from me. So without further ado, please subscribe, comment, share this video, and like it. And I'll be seeing you next time. Goodbye.